No Nation, welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. As always, my beautiful co-host, she's down here on the bottom of the screen today, Jen Santy, aka Jen Knoll 2013. You can find her on X at Jen Santy 1890, and of course, our best friend Danielle Kelly, aka D Kelly 23 on X. I believe you can find her
21.
at 21.
21.
Dadgummit. D. Kelly 21. But our very good friend, our attorney at law here in the state of Florida, joins us on what's like Christmas for us that has been following all this stuff. Florida State finally gets its day in court in the state of Florida. On top of that, Florida State files their appeal in North Carolina, and we'll get into that way later. But we've got so much to talk about. But thanks for joining us, Danielle. This is going to be fun. I know you ladies are excited to talk about this, and you had the pleasure of being there. So this
It's
is going to be
awesome.
fun.
Whew, it's been a day. Let's just say that. Step one in the process. Here. There it is.
Yeah. It was interesting getting the updates kind of like in between the TV coverage that we got. For the most part, it was all filmed. There was a few times it went down, but very interesting. I guess we can kind of start at the beginning with
Yeah.
the one ruling that we got in our favor. Florida State did get a ruling, not the entire thing. The judge kind of talked about hoping to rule on it all today. It didn't quite happen. As Danielle said, it was a hell of a day. It kept everything seemed like it kind of ran long, but he did rule on the priority. So
hmm
pretty much the race to the courthouse, he wasn't going to give that to North Carolina or allow the stay and just kind of follow what North Carolina did. So I guess that's a good place you can take off and I guess explain for people what the ruling was, and then we can go from there and get into the whole day.
Whew. Oh goodness. Okay. What was heard? Well, today we had the motion hearing scheduled on FSU's complaint that we have filed here in Florida. Let's separate North Carolina for a second. Three motions: motion to dismiss FSU's complaint, the ACC filed, motion to, or in the alternative, motion to stay. Meaning, and motion to stay, I want everybody to understand what this means. It means we are pausing the Florida litigation for a second in order to let North Carolina conclude, and then we'll deal with Florida. And that's what was argued today. And then the motion to stay discovery, meaning where we're starting to ask for evidence, requests for production, depositions, and interrogatories. We want to see those contracts. We want to see this stuff. We want it to be public record. The judge only really got to the motion to stay. The rest is going to be heard on April 22nd at 9:30 a.m. That's going to be the motion to dismiss. He went over the issues he's going to consider there. But the motion to stay for the ACC that the ACC filed was denied, meaning the Florida case is going to go forward for now, meaning we're going to get to the motion to dismiss on April 22nd and stuff like that. But for now, North Carolina doesn't get to take the case and run. So good stuff. It was good stuff.
No doubt. No doubt. Really big. It seemed like, there was a big difference kind of between this judge and the judge we got in North Carolina, in that the judge over there, Judge Bledsoe, really kind of let the lawyers kind of plead their cases, get up there. He'd have some questions, he'd stop them, he'd interrupt them there, but you could probably count on both hands how many times that happened throughout the entire day. This judge had I believe Judge Cooper, the Honorable Judge Cooper, had a totally different, more old school kind of approach. He showed up with, I think, 16 binders full of giant, notes, all kind of different presidents for all the different situations. And, I seen some complaints online a little bit of like, well, this is home cooking. It looks like the judge had his mind made up when he got here. But I think it's just more goes to show how thorough he was in reading all the documents and going and finding all this case law and everything. And he wasn't going to let the ACC get away with kind of twisting the knife, twisting the narrative in all these different ways, especially when it comes to that initial vote that never happened.
George, your audio went out.
Your audio went out for a second.
And maybe it's mine. Okay.
Is it mine? Let me see if it's mine.
What's up, guys? Can you guys hear me now or what? Are the feds off of me anyways? I guess we've got that figured out, ladies. If y'all just jump in, we'll throw you back up there. But before the feds got on and shut our stream down, we were talking about how the judge just really was not going to have any of that first initial filing. The North Carolina judge, not to confuse everybody and jump back and forth, but one of the big things over there where he denied Florida State's motion to stay in North Carolina is he ruled that, yeah, sure, that whole story about when the ACC initially filed, it wasn't material. And then, okay, well, once they went and had their meeting, now it's material. Now everything's fine. But he really, really struck that down. And I think we have the ladies back here. I don't know if they could hear me while I was talking. All right, guys, we were on the decision there, as opposed to North Carolina. The judge ruled that it was material when they initially filed, and it didn't deserve a stay or priority in this matter.
He had serious reservations about a lot of things the ACC did in filing this suit. And here's the issue. And on these motions, he's not finding facts. He's saying there's an argument on both sides, so I've got to let this go forward. And what he was saying is he was citing, and that's the thing, you actually brought up judges and how they handle things. A lot of people, like you said, had an opinion about how long today lasted. Let's explain that really quick. In North Carolina, shorter hearing, you end up with a 76-page order. Judge Cooper's kind of the opposite. Judge Cooper, I've been in front of him for years. He will research all of the issues. He's going to read every single pleading. Like, he will bring up cases that I've cited in pleadings. And I'm like, did I cite that? It's just one of those things. And he will bring them up. And he's already done it. He will come in with the binders and stuff. And then what he's going to do, instead of writing a 76-page order, he made light of the fact that the North Carolina judge has a law clerk that helps write all that stuff. And he does not. He's going to cite all those cases on the record, which he did at the end. And you all heard that when he's saying, this case name and that case name. He's going to issue his ruling, and he's going to have all those cases on the record there. So in terms of appeal, you can take that up, because you have the record preserved. That's why the court reporter's there. That's why it's so important. But yeah, it's a different deal. Everybody was like, the motion to stay took all day. Yeah, I mean, it does. Judge Cooper is very thorough, and he's very civil law minded. You have to understand that. When judges come to the bench, they're from various backgrounds. Often, times they've done civil law, criminal law, whatever kind of law, administrative, whatever. Judge Cooper is very civil minded and case law minded. I can tell you that. I've had very long trials in front of him. My favorite Judge Cooper story, I think, would be, we were past 10 p.m. one night, I think, on a trial. And opposing counsel was getting on my nerves, and I was getting on hers. And I finally put my hands on the table. I said, with all due respect, Your Honor. He said, we're taking a break, because I am familiar with that saying, and nothing good is going to come out of this. So, and we took a break and we adjourned till the next morning. But I lost that trial. But the issue with him was he wanted to preserve the record and take the time to go through all the case law and the arguments. And that's why the hearing was so long today. He's a very, very, very fair, thorough judge. So there you go.
Yeah, without a doubt. He took the time to go through it all. Like, there was a lot of counting the minutes and really strict procedural guidelines in the North Carolina case, but he really just, on each count and on each subject, he wanted to spend the maximum time just basically so he could understand it. And yeah, he was prepared. Sure, he had opinion going into it, but he gave ample time on every kind of count. He gave the ACC lawyers plenty of chances, the FSU lawyers plenty of chances to kind of explain things. And yeah, I was really pleased with it. It kind of is disappointing, because you wish maybe he would have done the motion to dismiss first. He even came up and said it like, I might as well, we might as well not talk about discovery until we get to the motion to dismiss, because if you dismiss, it's irrelevant. But if you would have dismissed, all of this would have been irrelevant. But either way, it was pretty cool that we got to get at least one ruling. And just the way he was leaning, I'm curious, and we can go to Jen first on this one, because I know you got to watch it as well. How were y'all feeling? Were y'all feeling like pretty good? Because my feeling was you got kind of what we were expecting, the reciprocate of what you got in North Carolina, kind of just the advantages with the state law. It seems like he's like, just like North Carolina wasn't going to let FSU get its way with bringing, the Sunshine State law up there, et cetera, et cetera. He's not having some of these, things they cited from North Carolina law from the past couple years and stuff fly down here. He's still like, he withholds his judgment on those things.
Yeah, and look, I enjoyed it because it was fun. Like, this was just fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie. It was funny. But no, I think he's really stuck on the fact that the North Carolina judge didn't dismiss it because they did not file it properly. I think he's stuck on that. I do. And I think rightfully so. Because, you kept hearing him talk about material, the word material. What does material mean? How in the world could you think that you're going to get $500 million and think that's not material? It makes zero sense the way they did it. And I really think he's hung up on that. And I think that's why he hung out on that for a long time. I mean, yeah. I don't see any other way around it. And also, I think that I don't think they were meaning to insult him all the time, but I also feel like he was insulted that ESPN wasn't there to say about these discovery motions that they filed, here and all these things. And they weren't there fighting for that, were they? No, because they knew they were going to win in Florida. And I think that's another thing that bothers him is he's like, you were forum shopping, like he kept saying, you 100% were. And he's not going to let that. I don't see him letting that go because it was something which to us is clearly obvious. Anybody can tell that that's exactly what they were doing. And again, even Judge Bledsoe in North Carolina was like, you can't file a lawsuit without any damage already done to you. And there was no damage done. It's just, I don't know. I still don't even know why the judge in North Carolina allowed that stupid vote to count. It was just dumb. It's just a dumb way to go. But again, North Carolina, ACC, same diff. Who cares?
And we got a precursor during the North Carolina hearing of why ESPN is not appearing necessarily so much here, because if they bring it to light, it's going to become public. And Judge Cooper made light of the fact that he wants to know if this contract, how this holds under Florida public records law. He's not talking about North Carolina public records law. We've been saying since the get-go, out the gate, the Sunshine Law is different in Florida. It has always been. It is wide open. I don't know how many other states are like us, but I just know how wide open we are on this. So, he would prefer to have them involved at this point and settle all issues. Now, when it comes to Florida, he's a very efficient judge, and he wants to, he's so into efficiency, and he wants, like he said, he wants to have this next hearing so everything sooner rather than later, so everything can get decided here. That's how he is. But I agree with you. I think that's just, oh goodness.
I thought it was pretty funny. Like, they bring up different things about the ESPN contract about this, and he's like, the judge would look at him a couple of times. Oh, surely you provided that to me. Oh no, we didn't put that in there.
Because if we see it, if any of us see it, it's over. We'll see all of it. It's over. You cannot. And he kept bringing up that Florida State is a state entity. That is a huge deal. Why I've kind of given the Canes a pass on their stance for a while, because they're a private university. They wouldn't have as much success.
I'm not giving those. No, I'm not giving them.
No, I know. Not that they would anyway, but we're in the better position, driver's seat wise, to do it. Because
I'm not giving nobody a pass.
Nobody gets a pass.
Nobody.
So the part, that was pretty funny to me, and it's kind of, he cuts through the bullshit, if you will, excuse my language. Part of what ESPN does, and it felt like to me the judge was just, I was upset at first and getting aggravated that, the judge wasn't pressing him on it, but it felt like maybe in retrospect, what I'm about to talk about, he was just giving the ACC lawyer a rope to hang himself. Because when he's talking about, the grant of rights and what matters, what does it mean if Florida State's leaving their grant? And the lawyer kept talking about like we talked about the choke at Doak, and they kept going to the other stuff. But when it came to the future, it just felt like they kept walking up to that line and really getting into the ins and outs of how like the future games would work. And that's what really mattered. That's what we all want to talk about. Did you have that same feeling in the courtroom? It was like before one of the breaks, the ACC lawyer finally, started to say it. He went, it's actually the future. And then the judge interrupted him and ended up going to break. But I wonder if that was just me. But we can get into that because I did learn a few things today about, kind of how the grant of rights is being viewed. Because there's a lot of ways you can look at it and everybody has opinions.
Absolutely. That was actually brought up a lot. Most definitely, which I was pleased to hear. I'm very pleased to hear. I'm gonna try not to talk as much as I did last time because I know.
Oh, but you're fine. You were in the room today.
No.
We'd love to hear you talk. You were in the room.
I think what he made so many points when he came out the gate and the cases he was citing. He was talking about Sanchez. He was talking about Perlman. He was talking about this. He was talking about that. And he kept mentioning anticipatory litigation or forum shopping repeatedly. Sometimes when you're in a hearing and a judge does that, they're drilling you to preserve the record because they're going to rule against you. But he hammered home on that. He had done all of the research on everything. A lot of this came down to patent cases. Because as lawyers, we work on facts. Isn't ESPN actually claiming this is a trade secret? We're kind of getting into the patent area anyway. And he's looking at patent cases that have identical facts to what we're dealing with. And he found case law on point. And he came out the gate and there was a case, I think, was it Sanchez? I can't remember, from the 4th DCA. And he said, I'm bound by this. And he started getting to the point where he was saying, I'm not bound by this in North Carolina. I'm not bound by that order. I'm not bound. This case law is binding on me because each jurisdiction has their own case law that's binding on them. U.S. Supreme Court's binding on all of us. We know that. Federal courts and appellate courts differ depending on what jurisdiction you're in. So he really was, at the point where he was, I could kind of tell where that was going, but I was also like, waiting to see if he like threw the dagger back when the other side got up, which I can't say he did because I think Florida State, like we've said, this is way more broad down here to us. They have pled with more specificity. They have gone at you heard the lawyer today for Florida State. Clearly, Judge Cooper didn't have as many questions for him as he did for the ACC. No. And it's not because of hometown. No. It's because they cited the correct law. And that's what's going to happen when you have a judge that wants to rule that day. That's just common. At least with him, I always knew where I stood when I walked out of the courtroom on an issue.
There's no doubt. I love that. There's no ambiguity there. I mean, he just says it exactly how he feels it, and you're right. That second half of the court hearing, our lawyer talked, or our lawyer, FSU's lawyer, seemed like he would go 10, 20 minutes before he would get stopped. It seemed like there, and when the ACC lawyer up there it was really back and forth. Jen, was there anything that you had a question for Danielle from what you saw today? Anything you want to pick her brain on?
Yeah, there was. So I had, of course I've forgotten it. And somebody actually put it in the chat and I was like, hey, wait, you stole my point. And I've forgotten it again because I'm insane, guys. Like, I'm sorry. I have the memory of, like a baby. It's very bad.
Like me.
All right, where'd he go? Where did he steal my point? Oh, well. Oh, here we go. Oh, here we go. The fact that ESPN dropped a headline with the North Carolina lawsuit. Where's their headline today? Anybody seen it?
Because they're about to get schooled on Florida public records law. They don't want to talk right now. They don't want to talk. The
moment Bledsoe dropped that lawsuit, my phone went, the ESPN stupid or whatever the shit is that they do. That was all over my phone. Where's the notification for this one? I'm waiting on it. I don't know where it is. Maybe they're using a fax. Are they using a fax? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no. Florida State was 1-for-1 today. We got through one motion, and Florida State won it. There's
Thank
no
you.
there's no celebrations to be had for them. One kind of thing I want to get clarified because I've talked about this a lot. There's been a lot of kind of confusion about it. They got into it today. Went back and forth with Rohan a little bit on Twitter talking about it. So ESPN has until February of 2025 to extend this grant of rights through 2036. It's something we've talked a lot about. But the ACC contends, and the way the grant of rights is currently, being represented in court, it's not like the grant of rights completely goes away in 2025. From what I currently understand, it ESPN has the exclusive right to extend the grant of rights from, just to 27 through 2036. But if they don't meet that deadline, then ACC would have the opportunity to go out and shop an Apple, a Prime Video, whatever the case may be, a CUW network. But here's the thing, and this is the same thing I've said the whole time. Without an FSU, without a Clemson in the conference, and especially, even if FSU and Clemson would say, you'd be hard pressed to find one of these other smaller networks to be able to accommodate and do the same deal that ACC did with ESPN, especially not having, the same production and everything. I guess, do we have static again or something?
Am
Okay.
I okay?
It
I
looked like
can hear
everybody
you.
was talking. Y'all go ahead.
No, am I lagging again? I'm sorry.
No,
I
no,
don't know.
I'm sorry. I was coughing. I was turning my mic on and off. That's why I was moving,
Okay,
Gotcha.
because I was coughing. Sorry, guys. My bad.
I think it's what you said. I think it was a huge point. I mean, he kept talking about the GOR and the ESPN agreement. That became a huge issue when the main crux of everything we've been fighting over so far. And here's a really big point that he kept bringing up too. And I know I raised this like over a week ago. The ACC filed first. Half of the arguments we've dealt with is the fact that they rushed to the courthouse, this, that, standing, ripeness, whatever, conditions precedent, all of that. That doesn't apply to Clemson. And I keep bringing that up because Clemson filed first. He can't rule considering Clemson right now, but he was very curious about it today in the hearing, rightfully so. If your whole argument is twisting on this, then what happens with that? And that's where we started really getting into the forum shopping and stuff like that. But then the ESPN agreement, I thought that would be the biggest issue. But then the ESPN agreements, the GOR, really a lot of detail on that.
He was really interested. He kept asking and poking and prodding, like, what's like poking around there, like, what is it? What's the rub? If FSU gets out, maybe, and to change the course of conversation a little bit, the judge, he even spoke about he's all for mediation. I really felt like with his grant of rights where he was poking and prodding, maybe like, is that pushing him? Is that him pushing towards meditation and being like, what if you were FSU? Like, what do you expect them to do? Like, how are they going to pay $600 million when they haven't even, I don't think ACC's paid FSU that since they've been partners in the conference.
Right.
We made like 12 million a year and then we got bumped up to 23 a decade ago. How much have we made over that decade? It can't be 600 million. So, yeah.
The 600 to 700 million kept coming up, and that's where we get into the property takings law. This is a government entity, and eventually you're going to get into that. Okay. Are you taking something from them? And the ACC lawyer kind of fought back. Well, if we said we were taking it forever, then I guess so. Taking the TV rights forever, then I guess so. But they're only bound through this. But we're looking in context. What are we bound to compared to other people? There are other cases. You have to remember the Pac-12. You have to remember everything else that's happened. Florida State can compare to. And we are a government entity. You are talking about a university that $700 million you're talking about is funded by us and by the state of Florida taxpayers. So are we getting, in taking law, Judge Cooper is very property and civil law minded. Anything civil law was a big issue for him, just like patent law was. And you have to give credit where credit's due. He went across every area of civil law to reach his decision. And I was really proud of that. I was. Does this amount to a taking? And he kept hitting home. This is a state entity.
It seemed like the judge in North Carolina really kind of brushed all that stuff off about Florida's laws and about Florida State actually being a government agency. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, you're right. This judge, that question was answered today. Florida State is being treated as a defendant or a plaintiff in the state of Florida, like as a government entity, it's like the ACC basically versus the state of Florida in so many words. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. That's how I mean, being honest, you're talking about taxpayer funds. And that was part of the big issue. You're talking about jurisdiction, you're talking about venue, you're talking about who gets what where. Where's the lawsuit supposed to be? Oh, we were injured here, the contracts were here, North Carolina says, or whatever. The property you're fighting over, the 12 years of home game grant of rights revenue is located in Tallahassee, Florida. The actual subject of the contract, what we're really fighting over. Everybody is declaratory judgment filed by the ACC to declare the grant of rights valid in December. FSU's original was to declare it invalid here in Florida. What we're talking about is the grant of rights. Stop getting caught up for the procedural issues or the bylaws and the fact that they had to take a vote before they sued us first. That's procedure. Let's put away the bylaws and the Constitution for a second. When you get to the nitty gritty, the declaratory judgment acts, that they can file a lawsuit there to declare it valid, or we can file a lawsuit here to declare it invalid, is over one thing: our media rights to our home games for 12 years. Where are those located? In Tallahassee, freaking Florida. Do you understand?
Yep,
So,
and he made a big point on that.
The Tennessee point, loved that, where the ACC lawyer was talking about if FSU owns a piece of property and they do a lease and then they decide that, they can get more money for this. So, we're going to renegotiate. We're going to up the ante on that. And so you sue, and Judge Cooper's like, well, do you sue in Tennessee?
Exactly.
Because that's what the ACC did. They hauled off and sued in North Carolina before we had done anything. So, I'm sorry, I'm animated.
No, you're right. You mentioned that's somewhat procedural, but it is procedural, but you can't take that out in the fact that that affected the judge. You could tell the judge really gave credence to the fact that look, they raced to the courthouse. They were able to beat FSU to the courthouse in a separate state, kind of underhandedly. So when he's ruling down his judgments, and you heard him say devil's advocate a lot, I'll put forth, you call it home cooking or whatever you want. Some of this stuff, he has to play devil's advocate to the way this North Carolina favor ruled in favor of North Carolina in order to be favorable or fair to the state. Like Florida State deserves that fair shake, if you will. So I didn't see any home cooking there. I just saw, like you said, him really holding, them to the facts in the case and how they apply in Florida. And even though it's just one part of it, if the motion to dismiss comes, this will be a conversation that's all for naught. I don't think it does. I think what ends up happening is you go with a case just like they went in North Carolina, and we're going to end up all in federal court. But that's beside the point. I see Jen's ready. She's got something. Go ahead.
Oh, no. No, I mean, I do have something always. But yeah, I do think this ends up possibly in federal court, but I also would not be surprised that a settlement talks start, working out here. Because I don't think that the ACC wants to go to federal court. I don't.
I'm with Jen in a way, because here's where people have to understand. Judge Cooper made strong hints today that when it comes to the ESPN ACC agreement, that ESPN is pretty much involved in this, and that the Florida public records law is different. And I've said this since the get-go with these contracts, because the GOR is only 3 pages. It keeps referring to this other contract as the consideration for it. That's the one that our general counsel has to go view with somebody in the room and make sure she's not taking verbatim notes and stuff like that. I mean, if you let those become public in Florida, which we have not ruled on the motion to stay discovery yet. We're getting to that point. ESPN is going to look at the ACC and say, dude, let it go. Let them go. I mean, seriously. And that's how I feel, because they would be stupid to let that come out. Completely stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think going to federal court, I think right now, I don't see ESPN having any interest in this, and they are going to have to comply. And I really don't see the ACC having any interest in going to a federal court because, I mean, Danielle, you obviously know more than I do, but federal court discovery is a lot more than, say, a state would look at, right? Like federal court is going to say, a fishing expedition. Yes, absolutely. This is a fishing expedition. And we're going to, because you're going to have maybe Clemson, Florida State, and maybe North Carolina, right? All in one.
Right.
So you're going to have such a broad ask of discovery there because you've got three different, I don't see it happening. I just don't. I don't see it happening.
It will get ugly quick. And not only
Yep.
that, federal courts are on very strict deadlines.
Yep.
Very strict. Like this will get done sooner rather than later. Promise that. Judge Cooper actually likes to kind of adhere to those federal court deadlines. That's why he's mentioning mediation off the bat. For everybody else, mediation is a requirement in a civil case in Florida anyway. Once one's filed, we have to go to mediation. He's just kind of telling people, go ahead and get it over with sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've all pretty been on the same page that we're going to get ultimately, get these guys to sit down and there's going to be a settlement agreement before they get to that actual discovery. Was really hoping we possibly could get that ruling today to really put it on ESPN to figure it out before the next court date, before those subpoenas show up. Unfortunately, this does kick the can down the road till the 22nd is the Monday after the spring game. Did they end up, I turned it off when they were picking a date. Did they settle on a specific date? I just saw they said the week of the 22nd that they're going to do those, those two other motions, but still huge getting the one we did today, without a doubt. As far as
second at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, so that'll be the Monday after the spring game. Boom. So that'll be not too long. So just about a week and a half away. Where was I going with that?
I don't know, but who's ready for the spring game? I am.
ADHD strikes again.
Jen and I said it at the same time. You had me at spring game. That's all.
We're so excited. We can't wait. Sorry, guys.
And I'm sorry, like I haven't even had time to rewatch or collect my thoughts and stuff. I have so many pages of notes, and I don't want to preach to y'all on Sanchez or Perlman or what the case law he cited is. I'm trying to
get it, girl. That's what we brought you here for. We love it.
So Danielle, I feel like Judge Cooper citing Siegel at first told us everywhere he was going to go.
It's Siegel out the box, and he made it very clear.
I think that
over and over. And both sides kept bringing that case back up. Yep. Honestly, one trying to distinguish out from under it, and him saying, no. Yeah, it was huge when he brought that up and Sanchez up, and then Perlman, and there was another one. I kind of was like, is he just giving them a hard time, or do I really?
Yes, he was. I think he was.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think he was enjoying them having to explain everything in their documents, like in layman's terms. I really do.
That's why I got really irritated with people saying, oh, this took so long, blah, blah, blah. I need you to understand something, because it was breaking news today that FSU filed a notice of appeal in North Carolina. We appealed the record kept below. Okay, whatever we did, if I didn't argue a certain point at the record below and I try to appeal, I don't get to bring that up to the appellate court. That's over.
Can we explain to the people what the record below is real quick, not to stop you?
The record below is what happened today. What the judge said, what the side said, what the court reporter took down. You can order a transcript of it. You can have the whole thing. That is the transcript we will attach if we take something up on appeal. And that's what Florida State's going to do if it's granted in North Carolina. So you have to understand he's preserving the record. It's inconvenient that it may take 7 to 8 hours, whatever, but he's giving both sides a fair shake. And he's also displaying his reasoning behind the issues and what he's, thinking and what he's researched and stuff like that. We need a good record below. if we end up on appeal. North Carolina is already on appeal now. You think the ACC is not going to potentially appeal this unless they settle? If he rules against them on the motion to dismiss. So, what I'm saying is you got to be patient and understand how the court system actually works. It's not that easy.
There's no doubt, and I appreciate it. It's like either you can have a nice and tidy court day like you had in North Carolina, and then you wait a month to get a ruling that's 70-something pages, or within a week and a half span, we get all the answers to all the motions. Like we literally got a ruling the day of. So that's semantics. It's like, do you want to spend 8 hours reading 78 pages, or do you want to spend those 8 hours actually getting shit done with the judge? And like it's pretty cool to see the lawyers' arguments immediately get paid off. Like you can see where the judge is in his thinking, his question. It's like, all right, can you change me? Can you prove it different? And as soon as that ACC judge or lawyer, even the FSU lawyer, kind of bows down to a point or a specific precedence, that's it. His mind's made up, and it was nice. It was a nice change of pace. It was different. You wish the guy could stand to maybe electrolyze a little bit, but at the same time, there's a bit of romanticism to having everything on paper and actually printing it out and taking it out. And the fact that he took the time to put it in the binders and all that without a law aid, that goes to show he probably really knows that damn information inside and out.
That's Judge. That's how he is. I mean, and I'm saying that as somebody who has lost before him, didn't like it, but at least when I walked out of the courtroom, I knew why I lost. I knew he explained it to me. He explained it to me in case law terms. He explained it to me. Here's the citations. If you want to go look it up, you didn't cite this in your brief, but I found it. One of those situations. I think he's a really, really, okay. Get Brad to say who's up because I'm like checking the FSU baseball game too. I'm sorry, y'all.
I think he means Florida State, or he wouldn't put it first. So.
Oh, okay. I don't know because y'all have a lot of different followers. Y'all actually have a lot of.
Brad's great. He's always giving us the scores to the games, whether it's softball or baseball. So we appreciate you, Brad. Carrie Go Knowles, our man friend, Carrie D Go Knowles drops a $9.99 super chat. No question. He just says to help keep the lights on. So, bro, we really appreciate that, man. That way we can keep that glare off of you guys. I appreciate y'all telling me about that at the beginning of the show. I was wondering if I should change it. So that answered that pretty quick.
It's weird because when we got on the stream, it didn't look like a glare when you were asking me. So it must just be on the view on YouTube.
We got to take care of our viewers. If we have anybody out there that it affects, we just knock it off. But yeah, it was pretty funny. I was literally like, guys, should I turn this light on or leave the? No, they answered that for us.
Yes, but guys, Danielle and I are not taking requests. Sorry, so don't go there.
Let's get into that big case that we talked about. Spiegel, was it called? Was that the case that was in 1991? That was the big precedent center. What is exactly that Spiegel case for people? Because it really was a big thing that he really went to, and it really stumped everything kind of that the North Carolina judge went by. Like you said, he's like, I don't have to go by that. I don't have to go by that. But this shit right here, it's like, we're going by this.
It was actually, I think that because I'm looking at my notes and I was scribbling past y'all. And I'm looking at because he cites cases that were cited in the cases too, which is what we call shepherdizing. That's what we do. Siegel, I have decision. The general rule is first filed, but with exceptions. And he's referring to forum shopping, and he can't find really anything that overcomes that all across the country. He will look. I mean, he cited not only North Carolina case law today, but Arizona case law today, but in Northern California case law today. He will look all over the country. After looking at the jurisdictions he's bound, he made that point right off the bat. Florida precedent is very important to him. Of course, it has to be. You're a judge here. We are bound by certain courts here before we start looking elsewhere, which we just consider persuasive. So that was the one. I'd have to go back and check because I'm going to get that confused. He quotes it from the end, and he explains that, in these circumstances, that doesn't always mean the trial court must always grant a stay. So he was starting to get around the stay issue there, and then he starts going into the patent cases, which were directly on point. As a matter of fact, I haven't pulled them. I have to pull them now because when he was reading some of the quotes, I was like, wow, you're explaining the exact situation just in a reverse. And people are like, patent law, ESPN is arguing a trade secret. This is a good way to go with this. And
absolutely.
because it's binding. I mean, he's citing federal case law. So he knew you guys got to think, this is an area of new stuff. We are not used to having to deal with this kind of stuff in court, conference realignment stuff. Pac-12, yeah, that kind of stuff. Big 12, that kind of stuff happened, but not at that level. So we have to look to other areas to find out how other courts would handle this. And he did a phenomenal job as far as I'm concerned. He could, grant their motion to dismiss, and I would still believe that, it's case law found. He did all his research and he's finding based on the law. I would still believe that no matter what.
Mike Hawley hits the $10 super chat. He takes care of the water bill this month, so we appreciate you, Mike Hawley, man. Everybody with the super chats. I can't believe it's 42 minutes into this thing. I was thinking like we hadn't really got into much, and thinking like, okay, we got into the next thing. I'm like in segment mode. We've literally been on here 42 minutes already. So I
haven't gotten into anything because I
feel like we talked about nothing. So I'm gonna throw the phone number on here, guys. We appreciate all the super chats. If you want anything up on the screen, all super chats go up on the screen. If you have any questions for Danielle, and then we're also going to put the phone number up here. If you want to call in and get a question, anything you saw in the trial or anything you're wondering about that, we've talked about or haven't talked about, guys, there's so much we could go over. Like we could literally do 6 hours. We're only going to do about an hour and a half, but yeah, any questions you have, feel free to reach in them. And, if there's anything, Danielle, you got to just, if there's something we need to cover that you really want to get out, feel free to take the lead.
I'm kind of going back
through. If not, I have questions, I'm not saying I don't have questions.
Really the two main points, he went a lot into the ESPN ACC agreement. He went a lot into the grant of rights. He also, let's throw this out there. Because the weakest argument perceived in North Carolina was our issue of sovereign immunity. They kind of completely brushed that off. They were like, nah, he said at the end, he thinks there's an issue with regard to that because we are a state entity. And they go into explicit waiver and waiver of sovereign immunity, and you have to waive it here and you have to do it this way and that. And he thinks there's an issue with regard to that. If you're giving that argument now, because that, I guess, in North Carolina was perceived as our weakest argument. If you're giving that now, because the argument was, if we're going to explicitly waive it, we needed to have a vote and we needed to have it to be public with the grant of rights for us to vote on with the Board of Trustees, and it wasn't, and stuff like that. And then you're getting into the issue, well, ACC, you haven't done this right to start with. Even in a lawsuit, you didn't vote and hold stuff public. How are you going to hold FSU? Take it top down. Okay. Actually, let's go from the bottom to the top. You look at the way they filed their lawsuit. They didn't take a vote. They didn't provide public notice. All right. The minutes of that meeting in January were huge on that ratification issue today. He brought that up. So fun to watch Ryan's affidavit get thrown back at him on that. But, he brought that up. FSU did the right thing. They took, and he made note of that.
Love
and
that.
The Clemson lawsuit, he's like, Clemson filed first. I'm not sure what their public records law is, but I guess it's not the same as FSU. We had to notify you. We had to give you 24 hours. And then we had to take a vote before we filed suit. But Clemson got you first. I'm assuming South Carolina public records rules.
That takes me right. I know right what my next place to take this thing is now that you brought that up, because we did get some new information on that hearing today, and they really got into that, the Hofstadter statement. So we do have our first caller. So let's get this one in. Our guy Tiny Hat Gang has been waiting here for a minute or two. So what you got for us, man? Welcome to the show.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. The Tiny Hat CEO has returned to the Renegade Report. How are y'all doing up here? Shout out to the attorney dressed in all black like the Omen, dropping all of the dangerous knowledge on us out here. Shout out to Jen, looking like the FSU soccer mom that we all love. Okay, I'm loving it, girl. And shout out to my boy George up here. You know, one thing that I did, and I tuned in here and I wanted to go over this because my favorite part of the entire proceedings was when those lame ACC lawyers was like, well, we might have witnesses up there in North Carolina, and they can't go and try to get John Swaffer. And the judge was like, you can do a deposition anyway. I said, oh, yes, sir. So shout out to Judge Cooper because he is a lifelong member of the Tiny Hat gang from now on. He sees through the bullshit, okay? Down here in the state of Florida, okay? In the state of Florida, we don't give a damn what you say. We going to look at it with our own two eyes. And the judge said, no. I read the paperwork. We kept the files. And down here in the state of Florida, you're going to have to open up them books and give us what we need out here, okay? If you're going to take state money for a state school over states' rights, you are in the wrong state to try to play that game with us down here, baby. Okay? We don't give a damn what y'all got going on up there in the mountains. We don't care what y'all got going on up there. Down here in Florida, we run this. Okay, we run this. So to the ACC lawyers, I hope y'all boys are enjoying them them billable hours, them $2,000 suits, because y'all getting run down on by the Lincoln lawyers from Florida State. We might as well go ahead and get Matthew McConaughey. Let Matthew McConaughey sit in the backseat of his Lincoln and just ride up and down the streets up there in Charlotte while he's making the ACC lawyers mad as hell because we beasting them out here, okay? That's what we doing. Florida State is getting our asses up out of there, and they can't hold us. All right, my other favorite part about this whole thing, they said, oh, well, how much do you expect Florida State to have to pay? Florida State, the ACC said, 130 to 150 million. And then what does he say? So the choke it doke. Y'all gonna get the rights to that game? He was out here spitting hot fire like he was dying. Who are the top 5 greatest judges of all time? Judge Cooper out here, baby. That's what we got going on. Okay, I'm loving what I'm seeing up here, and that's what I wanted to have our lawyer mistress out here. That's what you are. You are the dark lawyer for Florida State, dropping all the knowledge on us out here. I wanted to know how you felt about that when the judge said we could get these depositions and this paperwork all day. I don't care where he's trying to go. He want to try to fly to Aruba. Well, we gonna send somebody down there. He can send the Tiny Hat Navy to go down there and pick him up in Aruba if he think we ain't gonna go by no extradition laws. We in Florida. We can go get a whole bunch of Cubans from down there in Miami and send them 1957 Chevys over there to go get him. We can bring them right on back up here. Okay, we out here with ours. So we got us a big win today, and this is the first step in this long time coming trip that we taking up to the Big Ten to get the hell out of this plebeian ass conference. So go Noles, go Florida State, and shout out once again to Judge Cooper for getting us out of this mess. Tiny Hat Gang, be out.
Tiny Hat Gang, as always, coming through and spitting fire. And the lines are still open. You can get your calls in, but that was something else. That guy, it was. But those emails are on a protected server all the way up in North Carolina. In Florida, we can figure out how to get them fucking emails, buddy.
When he said, I'm sorry, when Judge Cooper said, I might be old, but servers, you can send an email like that. I was like, oh man, this could be great.
No, it could. And he brought all that up, and then he brought up the fact, because if you went through the ACC, well, the North Carolina order, which he also said he didn't read because he didn't want to be swayed. He was just talking off what the lawyer was arguing, going through the factors on their motion on our motion to stay, saying, well, ACC saying, well, we have more witnesses here in North Carolina, and Judge Cooper's like, what witnesses, and then he kind of went into that, and there was a slide throw to, I'm assuming you have several Raycom witnesses, which FSU is alleged. I'm not saying that he meant it as a side note, but I'm saying these are the things they don't want us to get to, and why not granting the motion to stay here is a big deal. So that's how I feel. Raycom. That's all I had to say. I
Oh.
should have just said Raycom, and then y'all got it.
No, there was a bit of a nod to Raycom. I appreciate that. It's why I'm so itching just because we didn't even get to have the discovery conversation yet, because there's some when they started talking about emails and Raycom and the different things, and the judge kind of mentioned they have claims. They've got claims all through there that are gonna have to be answered. I had a question that came in on the phone concerning the Sunshine State laws, and I won't mess it up. I'll just let you do it. The questions basically is, we know we have a better chance of discovery here in Florida with this judge. He's already said he's going to bring up stuff like that. But how do the Sunshine State laws affect the chance of like all of us, the actual public, getting access to the grant of rights and these emails and things like that?
Unless they do some kind of a protective order, which is entirely possible, that would come next. They're going to have to prove to him that these are trade secrets. They're really going to have to prove these points they're arguing. Otherwise, if Florida State, and you've got to remember, he kept hammering that home, we are a state entity. If anybody with the state of Florida sees this, it's public. We don't get to hide this stuff without a court order, period. So he's going to have to rule to keep it sealed or protect it in some way, redact it in some way, or else if I'm in with FSU or wherever, you're going to get to see it all. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to see it. It's going to be so much fun stuff when you talk about Raycom and all the different things. But I
could
just
talk 10 hours, and it's hard for me to even keep my thoughts organized because I have so many thoughts from today and everything that happened. So I apologize.
No, I love it. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to give you places to take off and run from. But it really seemed like the judge was not buying. It seems like he was really clowning on him about the trade secrets thing. There was a comment made like, and FSU's lawyer pointed out, like, this thing was signed way back when. It's so old. Like, what could possibly be in there now from 91 that's considered a trade secret? Like, what? Like, ESPN isn't doing these kind of contracts nowadays. There's no entity out there anywhere near what the ACC was that could possibly even, like, it doesn't exist. And like you said, like, they really pointed out something that I thought didn't get dug into in the North Carolina case. Here's somewhere you could probably run off. They really made a point that, look, the Board of Trustees signed on in 1991 to the ACC. But since then, they have not been brought to bear for any of these changes and things, and especially the latest one that made the extension from 27 to 2036, put that option in there. That was the president that did that, and he single-handedly gave himself that power. So it's like they're trying to act like there's no way that somebody could, and I believe they gave the party, they gave 3 different people. There's FSU, the president, and then the ACC. Like, it's not possible for somebody that works at FSU to operate in bad faith, and then for being able to use that. It felt like to me the judge really took that like, yeah, the president, it says in the contract the Board of Trustees have to do it. You can't just say, oh, well, I give myself that power now, and since I'm the president, I get to do it. Like, there's a chance he could be lying. And the judge, it seemed like the North Carolina judge didn't give 2 shits about that. He was just like, well, you should have hired a better president. This judge wasn't letting that pass. He like legit, it's like, we're going to look into Swofford, and we're going to look into whatever our damn AD or president was at the time that did it.
No, listen, and that was actually a huge point. Yes, thank you you got to like pinpoint me on things one time.
I'm the same way.
Through my mind. That was definitely brought up about the issues were the public records laws and the public meetings laws, and that doesn't just apply to the lawsuit. I want you to understand we are arguing that on the lawsuit they did not comply with the public meeting. I mean, the bylaws that they had to have a vote 2/3 whatever. And they're not complying with our public records law. That's a separate issue. Now go into the fact of the actual grant of rights. Go back to 1991. Take this all back for a second and realize that Florida State argued today that the Board of Trustees never ratified and even approved it. That the commissioner came down to Tallahassee and said this will never get before the Board of Trustees. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, get into that. I didn't even catch that context. I thought they were talking about recently the extension. They were talking about all the way back in 1991.
I think it's after 1981. I think we are getting into the extensions.
Yeah,
but then,
it was the extension before when
2013.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're talking about 2013. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry.
No, but that's where we start discussing how the ACC lost the priority race. They're starting to cite new case law. I'm just going through my notes. But then they start talking, and Judge really leans on this argument about, you can't have a third party affected in this way. And then we start getting into the principal, the agent, and the affected party.
That's it.
On amending stuff like this, and even redoing stuff in 2013, 2016 contract wise. The principal is the ACC. The agent is the one signing you up for suit or signing you up for this BS contract with whomever. Who was hurt? Who is the third? The third party can't have their rights affected like this. And that was the crux of the lawsuit. Who was hurt? Florida State. So does jurisdiction belong here? Yes. Does venue belong here? Yes. Is all this BS from their filing of the lawsuit and the way they handled it, all the way to they handled, redoing the grant of rights in 2013, 2016, and their shady deals when they wouldn't even involve the board of trustees to deal with that. They're doing the same thing. Look, one thing I've learned about the ACC over the years, and I'm not a fan, they're consistent at least. They will consistently screw up the entire way through, and it top to bottom. And that's how I feel. And that's what they've done. So you start getting into that legalese, and I'm sorry, I'm going to start going on rants, but you get into that legalese of it. We're the ones that were hurt. The harm is in Florida. So there goes your jurisdiction argument. We're the ones that were hurt. And because we didn't approve this stuff that's going on now. So there goes your contract argument. We're the ones that are hurt because, we didn't agree, rightfully so, with the board of trustees back whenever all that was going on. We're the ones that were hurt. And that's all coming to light now. And it has nothing to do with the college football playoff either. We just figured it out. And found out more information.
And I'm about to point out, this is what hurt. This is what hurt me. This is what hurt the ACC. This is what set this whole thing off. And this is why I'm excited for talking about discovery. Because like you said, the judge kind of got ahead. We even talked about some of that stuff today. Raycom, the ACC. That was a favor done. A favor done by the commissioner of the ACC for Raycom to keep them in business. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he kind of alluded to Florida State's claims that yeah. And back then it's like, why'd you go with Raycom? Like, is that who, if Fox had the choice, or if any of these other networks had the choice, is Raycom going to be the competitive, is that who they would choose? So what can you say about why you chose them? And the ACC lawyer was just like, well, no, they don't even actually exist anymore.
That is in the prime example when Cooper was bringing up the ESPN arguments and talking about trade secrets. Why is it a trade secret? They've got to be in competition with somebody. Cooper is very well versed in trade secret law. Let's all know that right now. Who are they in competition with? Fox, and they start bringing up Apple. They start bringing up this, that, blah, 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 and they start going down that list. You have to remember that the conference that is suing us, that we want to leave, that we are suing in Florida, actually signed up Raycom behind everybody's backs on the swaying pine trees in North Carolina back porches to say, between Skipper and Swafford, to save Raycom. Raycom was a sub-license of Fox. ESPN could not get involved with that to promote the ACC network the way they could this $1 billion deal that they have with the SEC network, because they were a sub-license and ESPN can't compete with Fox. You see, the whole argument keeps coming circular and circular and circular over and over. They keep proving our argument. It's actually, and I'm sorry, I'm going off on tangent.
It's a mic drop moment. No, that's like, it's hard, man. It's hard for me to think. This is one of the main things I wanted to bring up. And I know we're running low on time. We're already at an hour. We're going to go for probably another 20 minutes. The phone lines are open. If you have any questions, I try to get to the ones in the chat, but the chat's going by pretty fast. All the super chats obviously get up there. Any questions, obviously you can text them, whatever. We'll try to get them in there. But yeah, there's, like I said, we could talk about it for 18 hours, but feel free. Any tangents that need to be going on, we'll go on. And we got about 20 more minutes left to do it.
Can I say one thing?
Get after it, girl.
Why is Raycom that horrible cable company that when you move into a shitty apartment in college, that's the only cable option you have? Tell me this right now. That's exactly what Raycom is. Like, it's giving me those vibes. It's like that janky, disgusting, cable that only comes with the shitty apartment complex that you could afford at the time, right?
Yep.
Like, this was so bad. ACC really screwed this up. They screwed up everything. They really could have been ahead of the game. When they invited, I know I clown on Miami all the time, but when they invited Miami, in Virginia Tech and, I'm not saying Boston College. I'm not going there. That was a nice move. Louisville was a better move, but it was a nice, this could have been built up. They chose not to. They chose to sit on their hands. They chose to do nothing. They chose to sit there and be like, hey, Wake Forest is the fastest growing fan base that we have. Are you freaking kidding me? Nobody gives a shit about Wake Forest. Wake Forest could win the national championship right now, and I guarantee you 3 people would watch it. Nobody gives a shit.
They're very loud on Twitter, though.
Are they? I let them come to me because I will slap them motherfuckers down with a quickness. Nobody cares about Wake Forest. Nobody, except apparently the ACC. So to me, all of it could have been fixed. The ACC could have been good. I liked their plan with their basketball stuff, everything. But again, guys, basketball drives nothing. Nothing. If
they get revenue from the NCAA tournament. That's it.
Yeah. Kentucky would be a lot more powerful in the SEC, and they're not. They are treated like the redheaded stepchild, and they're the blue blood of basketball in the SEC. Okay? Or in the country, by the way, in the country. Nobody gives a crap about basketball. Nobody cares. Y'all can continue on with this whole, what do I do? Nobody freaking cares. Especially TV networks. Okay? Basketball is going to be on the TV. Whatever. But football is what puts eyeballs on the TV. So again, it's the whole thing with the ACC. They really screwed themselves. They could have made themselves great. They chose not to. They chose to sit there and smoke cigars and be like, oh, look at us, Wake Forest. Look at us, Duke. Look at us, North Carolina. Look at us, NC State. And by the way, nobody looks at any of those teams because nobody fucking watches them. Okay? Not one person. The only 2 teams in this stupid conference that get watched are Clemson and Florida State. Miami is at the bottom. They're a distant third. But again, nobody cares. And that's what the ACC hung their hat on, and that's what they're going to die on, and good luck with that. That's how I feel about it.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that nobody gives a shit about those other teams. Russell Buchanan says, the biggest takeaway from today is that ACC and FSU lawyers seem to both agree that ESPN has no rights to future broadcasts of a school that leaves, if that is the case. So this is something I want to get in. I'll give kind of my thoughts on this whole thing. Yeah, I agree. That did come out, and I talked about at the beginning on how it kind of changed. I talked to somebody, kind of changed my perception of things. But what was the question again? I'm all fucked up.
You sound like me. I'm like,
y'all got me all fucked up. It's y'all's fault. Y'all are rubbing off on me.
I'm doing 8,000 things at one time.
All the time.
I'm just letting you know.
Oh my God. What was I just fucking talking about?
I don't know. I put lotion on my legs earlier while I was like on here, so I'm just letting you know. Like
That
I do
ESPN
1,000
will-
things at one time.
Okay, so but should FSU, as soon as FSU leaves, soon as Clemson announces they're gone, ESPN no longer has any rights whatsoever. It all goes back to the ACC. The ACC owns it, and the ACC will have an opportunity, to do things. I'm just curious what you thought about that. Was that new to you? What did you think about the fact that that was really like the commenter said, that was really like the ACC, the guy, he said, he's like, yeah, 140 million to get out, and this is the case. They really agreed on how ESPN is, out of there.
I mean, in two aspects, depending on what side you're listening to. Florida State kind of came out swinging and said, if we leave the conference, then, our media rights are for sale to whomever, and nobody owns them anymore. So we're just going to pay this exit fee, hit us with 140 to 150 million and let us walk, which we would pay right now, I can bet. But then there was another aspect in the sense that we can't see that contract. And I think, honestly, that's part of what they're trying to hide. It's kind of I'm with you. But regardless, even on the other side, you have to look at it. ESPN is not bound past 2025. Your consideration for your contract is gone unless they renew that option. So at that point, that's one of those, you can't even file a motion for summary judgment on that, where we weigh evidence, not a motion to dismiss. The court would have to look at that and say, sorry, guys, this is over. This is over. So a lot's in ESPN's hands on that. Regardless, Florida State has the stronger argument, I think. I don't know. I cannot see that contract, nor am I going to travel to North Carolina and have somebody sit next to me and watch me. So
That's so creepy. That's so creepy.
I think what it really, really outlined is just the fact that we've tried to pound home on this show. And I guess I can give a summary of where I am on the suit and kind of give a prediction. We can go around the room with predictions of where we're at. But the fact that we really got to that point of, look, if FSU leaves, that's it. And we really have clarity on what would happen. Okay, the rights go back to ACC, and their only options then are to find other networks or conferences to sell them to. Okay, put yourself in the ACC shoes. Who are their options? Okay, well, we already know ESPN's out because they decided not to extend. So who else? You've got Apple, you got CW, you got all these. Who in their right mind is going to pay full price for the ACC? What, was just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the whole, you had 3 national championships out of the last decade we had. You take all those away, and somehow, some way, some other conference out there is going to be able to pay just to get, I don't know. I just think it's all a race to see when do we settle. It's the ACC trying to get the biggest number they can, and the longer this thing goes on, the longer it goes on, the less FSU is going to have to pay until it could get a point to where they could possibly have to pay for us to go away. If you get into some discovery that's just, FSU could fall into a swamp discovery that kills everything.
Keep in mind that ESPN brought that argument up.
We lost your voice there, Danielle.
Did I lose? Hold on.
No, that's you, George.
Me?
No, not you're good. You're good. Okay.
I just want to say, ESPN brought that argument up in the North Carolina hearing, and we don't want to because they can fight it in Florida. We have a stronger deal.
Absolutely.
Here. So
absolutely. And I think that Judge Cooper was extremely offended that the fact that ESPN doesn't want this coming out, and he's like, why? You kept hearing him say, what's the problem? You have a contract here. This person has a contract. You sue each other. Everybody should have the use of the contract. And when he said, did you hear that? Like, was there a lock and key? Did you have to enter a password? I loved every minute of this hearing. I have no words for this. It was just amazing. Everybody needs to invest in a popcorn company if Judge Cooper is going to preside again, because honestly, I don't think he does. I think he was really saying, y'all better mediate this because you're not going to like what I say.
Yeah, I mean, and I will come. Let me be the lawyer for a second because I know I got to
Mm.
qualify everything. He is a former mediator, as he explained.
Yep.
Law mediation, having a mediation in these kind of cases is already mandatory. We're going to have one anyway. I kind of saw right before he said we're going to take a break and then come back and rule, and he said both sides may wanna, and then he stopped.
Yep.
He said, "Never mind. Let me come back and I'll rule on this." He was already encouraging mediation, and it's not because he's hometowning. It's not because he thinks that the ACC is going to offer a settlement. It's literally the way he thinks. It would be better efficiency for everybody not have to waste hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees when this is going to come down to a settlement.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and deal with this and he said, I will order mediation quickly once we get to this point because he's required to in Florida. You have to order that. One thing he did, though, that let me know he is not, and I don't need to know because I've been in front of him and I've lost plenty of times, but he let everybody know from the gate, I am bound by Florida law on all of this.
Yep.
He backed up everything with Florida law the same way the North Carolina judge did with North Carolina law, and he let everybody know he's not bound by that order. And public records law here is wide open.
I thought the difference with Judge Bledsoe and Judge Cooper was Judge Cooper cited multiple state cases for his ruling, not just Florida. He actually cited a couple of North Carolina states. He cited Arizona, and he cited Supreme Court rulings. I feel like
Northern California.
Absolutely. I feel like with Bledsoe, it was more, I don't think the in-depth was as far as Cooper went, because maybe Cooper was just trying to prove the reason why he did that so he wasn't being called a hack or a Florida State puppet or whatever, but I think he made his case way better than Bledsoe did as far as why he made his ruling.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I'm sorry. We have a caller. You are live online here. What do you got for Danielle? Or Jen or myself?
Yes. I just wanted to report back in.
Oh, this is Tiny Hat back in. I'm sorry.
Has already dispatched Tiny Hat SEAL Team 6 down to Antigua and Barbuda to make sure that John Swofford is not down there trying to hang out with Diddy on the private planes down there where we can't get a hold of him. We already watching it, baby. He ain't going nowhere. Okay, we're getting the files, and we're gonna make sure that anywhere he decides to go, we pulling up on him. All right, I already dispatched everybody down there. I'm letting you know.
So it's gonna be Swofford walking back and forth, pacing outside the Fed's hotel, sweating this time.
Oh, absolutely. He gonna try to go to the embassy. We got that covered. Okay, I'm sending everybody down there. I got John Wick down there. I got the Denzel from The Equalizer down there. I got Denzel from Man on Fire. We got 2 different Denzels on the Tiny Hat SEAL Team 6. Okay, you are not getting away from us, Swofford. All right, it's gonna come to the light. ESPN don't want nothing to do with this because they know that we got our Northwestern journalism contacts over here because we got the Big Ten ready and waiting. Okay, we got a coalition of the willing sitting up right now waiting for us to walk in the doorway, and they doing everything that they can to make sure that Florida State comes up there and dominates that conference. Okay, all right, we already talked about Northwestern, so now I want to talk about these Minnesota fans. Okay, because I've been tagged by these Minnesota fans. Let's understand something, you little golden gophers. Okay, your colors don't look as good as ours. We're garnet and gold. You're some weird red and brown. That's what y'all are. Okay, y'all better go pray and hope that y'all can have Prince come back, because when Florida State gets up there, we're gonna baptize y'all in the waters of Lake Minnetonka when we get up there in that conference. Okay, Northwestern is already on our team. Okay, so we dominating it up there too. So I'm ready. I'm telling y'all right now, I already got the Navy SEAL Team 6 down there. The Tiny Hat SEAL Team 6 is down there watching out. We're gonna make sure that Swofford is gonna be there ready. He's showing up. Tiny Hat gang, we out.
Tiny Hat, as funny as ever. I was just saying sorry, Danielle, in the chat because of how I cut you off, but it worked out. Sorry to interrupt you guys. I know it's been a little off and on with up and down with the stream cutting in and out. I don't know. We stream to Twitter on this show, so we've got 400 people instead of the kind of 150, 200 we have on YouTube. So I don't know if that's what it is, but we appreciate everybody sticking with us, and I hope I didn't cut off something genius you were about to say right there, but Tiny Hat again kills it. We are going to cash in on that act, so just stay tuned. We've got something in the works for Tiny Hat and Jen to do together. So yeah, y'all just stay tuned. There's stuff coming.
Oh yeah.
We're not done by a long shot. So,
And guess what, guys? We're gonna be so fun together. Is all I'm gonna say.
Absolutely. There'll be no shelter for the Miami Hurricanes and the whatever we call the Florida Gators down there.
Do we talk about them? Because is there a point to? Because I don't know that there is.
Yeah.
I mean,
who
who
knows when they'll make it back to a bowl game?
Do you need to talk about a team who might win 2 games next year? Like, I don't think so.
Come on, Miami or the
And
Gators?
one of them is going to be Miami.
I would
No,
not.
I'm saying-
you up.
Yeah, I'm saying Florida's going to be Miami, and then they might win one more game. I would say Tennessee because Florida always wins against Tennessee. That's what I would say.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that was like their one shining moment all year was when they got to beat up on
Oh
Tennessee.
my God, make Florida 4-8 again. I absolutely adore that comment, Encyclopedia. I think that's amazing. Let's put it on a t-shirt. Let's do it. Like, I think make Florida 4-8 again. That's great. That's fantastic.
The
I don't have the words for that.
Gators.
Do you remember that Walmart after it happened that they put up the 4-8, like the deal on the Kool-Aid? Oh my God, I couldn't. That's amazing.
I love Petty. Petty is my favorite color.
Me too. Me too.
It's the best. It's the best.
Petty and yellow, we found out the other day for Jen,
Yes.
are her favorite 2 colors.
Yeah, yellow is my actual favorite color. But I mean, I prefer to be petty 24/7. So
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Well, guys, I think we've pretty much touched on everything from today that we could. It's been an absolute blast, but I do want to give you all a chance for closing statements. Or if you have a question, speak now or forever hold your peace. This thing's cutting off hard at 8:30 Eastern. I may follow over there to Spear Addicts. They just started a show. May go hang out with them. But yeah, anything before we hit the road?
Can't think of anything.
Boom.
No.
Ask Jen about Coach Cal, Brad Power said. So okay, well, I'm usually on Jen to like talk about Florida State. You've got 3 minutes on the clock to talk about Coach Cal and all this craziness over there.
I have never been happier that MFer that you had to check for your watch or your wallet if you were ever in the room with him. Finally, Kentucky saw the light. They got 1 championship out of that MFer. One. After he destroyed the Memphis basketball program. I'm so sorry, guys. Like, Coach Calipari getting run out of Kentucky is my favorite story I can even imagine. I don't have the words for it. And then college football put out this tweet that was like, oh my God. They compared him with Jimbo Fisher, and I was like, I can't even tell you how great this tweet is for me. It means so much for the way that those two use these programs and then went to, Cal went to a lesser school in Arkansas, way lesser. I mean, lesser. I mean, he's not going to win a championship at Arkansas, by the way. I mean, seriously. And by
I
the
love
way,
it for the Florida State, Kentucky basketball fans. I can't stand that dual sport thing. Like, if you're watching the podcast, don't quit watching, but just know I disapprove, guys. If you're like a Florida State fan and you're all
North
Duke
Carolina
or Kentucky basketball
fans.
fans, yeah, that's another
North
one.
Carolina basketball fans can, bye. So I don't have the words for how happy I am about Cal being
Cash
stuck
App's on
in
the damn
Fayetteville.
screen, guys.
Fayetteville. He's stuck in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This jerk who was like at the Knicks and all these. I mean, screw you, Cal. Go take your snow cone machine. Enjoy your life. That's how it is.
I love it. Yeah,
Love
I love it, man. Who knows? Maybe it can work out and somehow Florida State gets a good coach out of it in a couple of years. But yeah.
Well, I
Anything,
don't know about
Danielle,
that.
before we get out of here?
I can't think of anything other than, we still, just to remind everybody, when I say the case is still going forward in Florida, that means we're not pausing our lawsuit right now for the North Carolina stuff to settle. That one's further along, obviously, but that means we're going forward to the motion to dismiss, the motion to stay discovery. That will be heard on April 22nd at 9:30 a.m.
Let's go. You heard it. So the Monday after the spring game, and make sure the spring game, that's next weekend. Make sure you're in Tally. I just talked to a couple more former Noles who are going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you get to that thing. It's big game James over at Den Media Group, Chris Prager of Spear Addicts, and CJ Wilson of Dope Talk putting it on along with us and Unconquered 850 going to help out with the whole thing. So be there, be square. And we love you guys. We will see you Friday.
I can't wait to see you guys. I really can't. I cannot.
Absolutely. It's going to be packed. Let people say what they want about construction and stuff. It's going to be absolutely loaded. And I know the Champions Club, everybody I've talked to is like going to be in the Champions Club for this spring game. So I know that thing's going to be loaded with former Noles and friends and everything else. So we will see you then, and we will see you Friday again at 7:05 Eastern. And who knows who we'll have as a guest by then, or what ruling will come down, or what else. So we will see you then, and we love you. And I guess we can leave you guys with some Trub Life since we got on the roasting session here at the end of the show.
Sorry.
Hey, man. FSU versus everybody. Let go. First off, fuck Bama in the Roll Tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance.